Perfect. It's live on both. It's live on both platforms. What's up, YouTube? I'm gonna go ahead and do the usual and start the stream, or not the stream. Start the podcast, and then get into this. All right, here we go. I don't know if you guys hear the intro or not, but here we go. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Voice in the Valley podcast with myself, Tara J, aka Dr. Armstead. As usual, this is my third podcast episode. I am recording the audio on GarageBand. I have my TikTok live going, and I have YouTube stream going. Again, the only reason I'm doing this is because I have met individuals that said they want to listen to the podcast, but they don't have Spotify. So hopefully, when I'm doing this, it actually works out so they can pick it up on YouTube and other places and all that good stuff. But, anyways, I decided that I was going to do this podcast episode because of a video that I just posted on my social media this morning. Actually, since Wednesday, this Wednesday. Today is June 14th. So for the last couple of days, I have been volunteering my time as usual at a local youth detention center, and I was called to teach. And the reason why I was called to teach is because a couple weekends ago, before I got ready to go on vacation, I had recorded a particular audio message. And in this audio message, I was having a very raw, real, open conversation with some other volunteers about the spiritual struggle that I was going through at the time. There's a particular individual in my life that is close to me that has been extremely verbally abusive, at times physically abusive, just not good relationship at all. And it shaped me and rearranged my mind and my view of myself and my self-worth and all that since a very young age. And when I sent it to the other volunteers, I sent it to just say, "Hey, I need prayer. I need you guys to like cover me in prayer, to intercede for me, because this isn't it. I don't know how to handle this on my own. I need some help." And I sent it off, and they said, "You know what? You need to share this with the young people at the detention center because they need to know that they're not the only ones going through similar, that everybody that is volunteering and giving their time is going through a storm as well." And so the last couple of days, I've been having this conversation with them about getting to the root of who you are and why you do what you do. The group that I volunteer with, we just had a name change, and a lot of the time since we changed the name, we've been talking about trees. And if you think about trees, this is how the other person described it, and I thought it was pretty cool. They said you see the leaves, you see the tree trunk, you see the birds on the branches, but no one realizes how deep those roots had to go before that tree came to fruition. And so I had no idea that this name change was going to come about when I was having this discussion about getting to the root of who you are. But I think I wanted to share it so that other people can understand it and start taking the first step towards internal healing as well. The video I posted on my social media, I said, at the end of the day, if we really want to see change in this nation, we have to heal the younger generation from the older generation so that they don't pass it on to the next generation. And every time I've said this in person, people feel some kind of way about it because they think what I'm saying is that the older generation has screwed up the younger generation. And that's why history keeps repeating itself. And honestly, we kind of have. That is actually kind of true. You think about how many people walk around on this earth carrying the pain from childhood. And they're not just 30 years old, 40 years old. Some people are 70, 80, 90 years old, still carrying around the pain and the abuse and the trauma and all that kind of stuff from childhood. And some of them do a really good job of pretending like they don't have this pain. They do a really good job of acting like they're so strong. But then when you catch them in those very authentic moments, you really see why they are the way that they are. So I say all that to say this was the conversation that I was having with young people at the youth detention center today. And the first group I had the conversation with, I got the typical responses like, why don't you just cut this person off? Why don't you just stop talking to them? Like, why do you even let them get under your skin like that? But there was a third group that I had this conversation with, and the room was silent. And one of the things about teaching that some people misunderstand or misperceive is that when your students get quiet when you are speaking or teaching, it doesn't always mean that they're checked out. Sometimes when you are having a real, authentic conversation with young people, the quietness of the room means that you have struck a nerve or you've hit a truth that they have been waiting for somebody to finally acknowledge and see. So this third group was Friday evening. I had the same audio played for everyone. Same first question, which is, what are your thoughts? And I really, every time I teach, it's different for every group or every unit. Even if I come in and I have my whole lesson plan or my notes, the conversation always goes a different route depending on what youth are in there, which I love because again, my intent for teaching, no matter where I am, is authenticity. So the conversation with the third group got deeply into suicidal ideations. And I believe these young people don't understand that a lot of adults have gone through the same thing that they've gone through as children. It's just that as adults, we think or we've been raised, previous generations have been raised to suppress it, to stuff it down, put on a facade like we're strong, like it doesn't bother us. And then what that does is it gets passed on to the younger generation. And this younger generation, my son's generation, is so sick and tired of that. Like they are a generation that, and I love it, they are very honest and they can't stand fake people. If somebody comes around them that's fake, they can sniff it from a mile away. And you have two types of adults when they're around this generation. You have those that get very mad because they recognize that they can't be fake anymore. And then you have the other adults that love it and they connect even more with this younger generation because they realize, goodness, I can finally like talk about what I've been through. So that's what happened with this third group. I was talking to them about how the root of everything, all the choices I've made, all the decisions I made, all the reactions I've made is because from this particular person in my life, I've never gotten acceptance. I didn't need to hear, I love you, I'm proud of you. I really would have loved that. But what all I wanted was acceptance, and acceptance in the sense of accept me for being me. Don't try to change me. Don't try to tell me that who I am and who I know I am is wrong. Don't disrespect me because I'm not operating under your control. Don't reject me because I'm not doing what you want me to do. Just accept me. And at a very young age, I recognized that I was not getting that and I was not going to get that from this person. And so anytime growing up, whether it was school, a job, career, that I felt like I was being rejected, misunderstood, falsely accused, lied on, I would have this strong, almost rage like anger reaction. And keep in mind, I've already talked to these young people about the fact that anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is not, when you see a person that's angry, it's never because they're angry about what is happening currently. They are angry because whatever is happening currently is reminding them of something very painful from the past. And so I was explaining to them some of the things that I did as a young person when I was their age that screwed me up later on when I was an adult. One of those things being like, I didn't start fights. Some of you've heard this a million times. I didn't start fights, but the minute somebody disrespected me and picked a fight with me, I was finishing the fight. Later on, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't even a certified educator yet. I was working at after school program, and there was a coworker there. I don't know if it's because they were jealous or whatever the situation was going on. It doesn't matter. But they went and they lied on me, saying that I was yelling at a child. And the situation was this child was there was a teacher that was staying after school to get grading done. And I could tell that she was tired. And this child kept coming over to her and talking to her and being rude. And the teacher was like, I need you to go sit down. Like, I need you to get away from me. You're being disrespectful. I don't want to have this conversation right now. And so this child kept going over to the teacher, despite the teacher being very respectful and asking them to move. And then the child decides to just pass gas in front of the teacher's face and then laugh about it. So the teacher was getting frustrated, and me, this is after school program, I went over and took the child by the arm and I said, "You need to move. The teacher has asked you to stop. You need to stop. It's not funny anymore." Well, the camera, because at this time they had cameras in that school, which I to this day don't have a problem with. You just need to make sure it's audio as well. The camera caught me taking the kid by the arm, moving to the side, and it looked like I was yelling and screaming in this child's face. So before coming to talk to me, they went and talked to some coworkers in the room, and the coworkers were saying, "Oh, she was screaming, she was doing this, that, and the other, blah blah blah." So they said, "We're gonna have to let you go." So as you can imagine, I was pretty pissed off because again, my triggers were being falsely accused, being lied on, and disrespected. So I went outside after they called me to the principal's office and told me that they were going to let me go. I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm heated, I'm angry, and I'm cussing. I'm on the phone calling my parents like, "Oh, can you believe they just fired me and I didn't do nothing wrong? I'm trying to help the teacher out, blah, 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 blah. F this, da, da, da." Yeah, cussing going off. What I didn't know was that there was a camera out there in the front of the school. So later on, I had found out that they found out the truth of the matter, that this other person had lied. But because of my behavior, they were not going to rehire me. I was a hot headed, short tempered, angry, hurt little girl in a 20 something year old woman's body. And so I explained this to the young people at the youth detention center that I volunteer at to get them to understand, even though our parents, our grandparents, our cousins, our siblings, our other family members hurt us, abuse us, damage us. As long as we keep holding on to it and we don't talk about it, we don't see the abnormality in it, we suppress it, we are going to continue to hurt ourselves because we're not letting go. And as you can imagine, a lot of the young people were asking me, so like, why don't you just cut this person off? Why don't you stop talking to him? Why don't you get away from him? And I had to go to the word of God. In Exodus 20:12, it says, honor your father and mother. And the reason why the Lord tells you that is so that you can have long life in the land that the Lord is giving you. What it doesn't mean is that if you grew up with abusive parents or an abusive household, that you say, "Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna love you like everything is okay." Honor means respect, and the only way that you can respect somebody, despite what wrong they have done to you, is to forgive them. And forgiveness is not a one time, one and done type of thing. Forgiveness is a daily type of process. In explaining this to young people was helpful to me to make sure that I was holding myself accountable to forgiving this individual. So I explained to them that forgiveness is understanding the fact that what was done to you was not a reflection of you and it was not your fault. There was nothing that you did to deserve it. And the other step of forgiveness is looking at that person who did that to you and understanding that they didn't do it to you because it was you. They did it to you because it was done to them. They did that to you, but that is not who they are. That is who they've become. And so when you listen to the process of forgiveness and the fact that it is constantly carried on, you understand this concept that the only way that we can change a nation, a society, is by healing the younger generation from the older generation so that they don't pass it on to the next generation. And that's why forgiveness is a continuous thing. Because when you forgive somebody, that doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden now going to switch up and be better and they're not going to, hurt you anymore. What it means is now you have released them. You have decided, I know you did this, and I can't lie and say that it didn't hurt, but I know that's not who you are, but I cannot continue to try to fight it, to try to control it, to try to take care of it according to myself, because all that I do is get myself in trouble. That's why I was getting in trouble, losing career opportunities, losing friendships, embarrassing myself with my reactions, because those reactions were not coming from a place of forgiveness. They were coming from a place of, I deserve to get respect. I deserve to get acceptance. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to give it back to you. This is why I continue to say, I believe we see an increase in student violence and escalation in schools. Because at the end of the day, we have a lot of young people who are growing up in a very toxic, violent home environment, because my generation has not even begun to talk about how we were brought up as kids. And so, as long as we keep suppressing it and not talking about it, we're passing it on to our children. And then our children go to school and they're dealing with the same crap that we dealt with when we were at home as a child. Then they're dealing with other crazy stuff in schools now. And then they go to a teacher to try to talk about it. And what do most teachers do? Oh, we can't talk about it right now. We need to get back to the schoolwork. Or it's not that big of a deal. Stop over exaggerating. And so then we have this cycle of violence and pain and depression and suicidal ideations just constantly going around because the older generation is not healing and they're passing that on to the younger generation. So I was having this conversation with young people at a youth detention center, and I explained to them that it's not about walking around and ignoring what happened to you. What it is acknowledging that that pain, that situation, those words, that behavior, that action is the beginning of what reshaped you. It's the beginning of what changed you into something other than what God has created you to be. And so it is time to sit with God and one, forgive these individuals, but two, really have a conversation with God on healing that root of all that is in you. Again, my root, the reason why I was so angry and so pissed off and, you know, attracting the same males over and over again when I was dating and stuff like that was because I was desiring acceptance. I was fighting against rejection. I was fighting against abandonment, the spirits. And then I was fighting against suicidal ideations. That voice that's telling me, you know what, nobody wants to be around you. Nobody loves you. Nobody cares. I mean, look at how much people are abusing you, whether physically or verbally. Just go ahead and end it. And I was fighting against that as a child. So anytime somebody would press the button to remind me of that feeling, I would immediately pop off and react. I had to forgive this individual, first of all. And I've had to forgive many people my entire life, obviously, but I had to forgive this person because that was the deepest of my pain. And I had to begin to pray for them more and more. Now, prayer doesn't mean they're immediately going to change, but again, what it does is say, I'm not going to try to control this. I'm going to give it to God because I'm pretty sure that God is going to do a better job of handling this person and make them reap what they have sown. And so then I had to sit and look at myself and stop blaming others. And that's something that I think a lot of young people probably have not heard in an honest, authentic way because they're so angry, they're so frustrated that all they see is it's somebody else's fault. Somebody else did this to me, but not recognizing that even though those individuals did that to you, you are making the decision to get angry and then retaliate. You are making the decisions to damage yourself and your reputation. Nobody else is doing that but you. And so I challenged a couple of them to think about that person. And if that person had walked in the room at that time, would they be able to stand up and give them a hug? And of course, a lot of them said no, because look at what they did to me, or look what they said to me. I won't want to go get to give them a hug. Like, no, you did something like that to me. I shouldn't even have to talk to you anymore. And I continue to tell them that is how you know you haven't forgiven them. You have a right to be guarded and be angry and be frustrated, but you don't have a right to hold a grudge. Because when we look at ourselves, if we say we're children of God, if we say we follow God, if we say we've given our life to God, we do not obey and make God happy every single day. But He loves us. And He asks for us to give that same type of love to others. So if I can't forgive somebody, and forgiveness doesn't mean, again, forgiveness doesn't mean you act like and you pretend like something didn't happen. No, you have those memories and you have those emotional wounds. But what it says is you are releasing your emotions and your desire to control and retaliate and fix that situation. So then when you talk about it, you don't have the emotions connected to it. And that is a difficult thing to do. And when those young men ask me, how are you able to do that? I literally tell them it is not me, it is God Himself. Because I have the same human desires as anybody else to cuss somebody out and to pop off. But I don't do it because I realize that God also says in His word, if I don't forgive them, He will not forgive me. And I don't want to die after living on earth feeling like I'm in hell to be in hell for eternity, all because I didn't forgive somebody. Forgiveness sometimes means that you cut off access and you don't talk to that person anymore. But again, that comes with communication with God. You have to find out what He says for you to do. So I had this conversation with these young people. And keep in mind, I told them, I said, I attempted to unalive myself when I was 12. And I was angry when I woke up the next day. But now I understand 30 years later, why the Lord did not allow me to disappear. Because if I had not gone through, if I don't continue to go through the difficult things that I go through, whether in my personal life or in my career, I would not be able to sit in front of young people and identify with them and connect with them in a way that it's planting a seed that makes sense. So when they get older, they will be further ahead and more healed at my age now sooner. So I had a young man come up to me at the end of the third service that I did this with. And new face, hadn't seen him before. And he said, "Thank you. I really could identify with what you were talking about." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, is it just the whole thing or, whatever?" And he said, "No, I've been battling with suicidal ideation since I was young." And he showed me the scars on his arm. And I said, "What was it that, helped you to be thankful for this conversation. And he said, well, you know how people go to church, and when they go to church, they're all smiling and all that, but they never talk about battling with suicidal ideations or addictions and their issues. They always try to act like everything is all good. And so then you feel like you're wrong because you know you have things that you're fighting, but nobody else is talking about it. And I told him, I said, oh, okay, so it feels kind of weird because I'm a Christian individual and I'm openly talking about my struggles and my different battles that I have. And he looked at me, he said, exactly. And so at that time, he had to leave, but it let me know a lot of these young people right now, I've said it before, they're all screaming out for attention and stuff, but a lot of young people right now, they simply want to be heard. They want to be heard and they want to be seen, not for what we as adults want them to be, not for how we want them to speak to us. They just want to be seen and heard in their authenticity. Some youth, when I go and I serve at this detention center, they'll be talking to me and having a conversation and they're cussing. How rude would it be for me to stop them from talking and say, "Hey, watch your language. We're in the chapel." Instead of just listening and acknowledging how they feel. I believe that's the reason why that young man came up to me and said that, because he's probably been at many churches, many Christian retreats, many church camps, and all these gatherings, Bible studies. And he's probably sat there like, I know these people say they love God and they know the scripture, but their life can't be that perfect because I'm going through stuff. So I know other people got to be going through it. But they're telling me that I need to pray, I need to read the Bible, and I'm wrong. And what probably happened is he suppressed that anger from feeling not seen, not accepted, not heard. And eventually that suppression turned into a consistency of behaviors that led him into this youth detention center. That is the simple concept that I continue to hammer home in schools and wherever else I'm at. A lot of people think that the behavior of young people is because they're bad kids. They need this resource, that resource, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And some children do need that additional resource. But I truly believe, until it's proven otherwise, when you simply take the time to talk with a young person, not talk at them, and sometimes just listen to a young person, that is what heals them and allows them to succeed on a level like never before. I don't know how this young person, this young man, took that conversation, that lesson, and sat on it yesterday. But for him to come up to me, meeting me for the first time, never seeing me before, and being authentic with me about the suicidal ideations that he's battling, it shows that the way that you heal a nation is not by telling the other party how trash they are, how ignorant they are, how wrong they are. It is by listening and getting a clear view of their story so you can learn and then you respond. That's why I make such deep connections with students and young people. I'm not doing anything fancy. A lot of people say that I am gatekeeping what I do to connect with students so well. I'm not gatekeeping anything. What people don't understand is I can't teach you how to be authentic. I can't teach you how to be honest. I can't teach you how to be transparent. You either got to go as an adult and sit your butt down and heal from your childhood and forgive those people, or you don't. And if you don't heal And you don't think about what's the root of all that you are. What is that root pain of you? If you don't do that, when you step in that classroom, every young person is going to be able to sniff a mile away that you're fake. And they're not going to care if you buy them lunch, if you buy them school supplies, if you say you love them, if you say you have their back, if you say that you're there for them. They're going to sniff that you are fake. And you're not going to get their respect. You're not going to get their attention. You're not going to get their hard work. You're not going to see their success. Because there are so many adults walking around here right now, and I'm still one healing. We are little boys and girls in adult bodies. And the only way that little boy or that little girl is going to heal is when we start forgiving and we start healing from the root. Because we're never going to be able to produce more trees or more flowers or more beauty on the earth if our roots are contaminated. If a tree's roots are contaminated, the whole tree is going to be contaminated. If an apple seed gets poisoned, the whole fruit is going to be poisoned. And no matter how many times you take those seeds and plant them elsewhere, they're always going to produce poison fruit. And that's why our nation, the United States, is the way that it is right now. Because we're all suppressing and smushing down that root of all of our pain, of all of our reactions, and calling it success when we fake it until we make it. But then when you get people who speak truth and talk about the toxic things that others are doing or that we do as a result of abuse and stuff that happened in our past, those people get shut down, shut up, and called crazy. Why? Because a person who is hurt, a person who does not want to heal, doesn't want somebody else to expose where they're falling short. If somebody is speaking truth and you're trying to hide that truth, it shows everybody else that you've been lying, and you don't want anybody to see that. You want to control your environment because you grew up in chaos. And see, I have this conversation with young people, 15, 16, 17 years old, because even if people don't like me, let's say there's CEOs and there's staff members at this detention center that don't like that I'm giving this message. When you are sharing these types of things with young people, even if people shut you up and push you away, that seed has already been planted. And if it's a seed that came from God, it's going to grow. Somebody else is going to water that seed. And that child will get older and heal faster than the previous generation. Before I die, before I pass on, I want my legacy to be that from the pain and the darkness in my life, I took and gave light to others, light and healing to others, because that's what God wants us to do. We're going to have tough times on this earth because we live in a fallen world. This is Satan's domain. But the true sign of a child of God, the true sign of somebody who has fully given their life to Christ, is they don't take all that negative and all that darkness and all that pain and just retaliate on others. They forgive, they heal, and they give God's love to others, so that when they talk about their testimony, people would never believe it. I am the teacher I am now, not because I've been trained and I read books and gone to conferences that made me this way. I am the teacher I am now because I had teachers that were the complete opposite to me when I was younger. I endured abuse, embarrassment, pain, everything that you can imagine when I was in grade school. But if I were to share all those stories, no one would believe it, because I took all of that to create light and healing in this generation of young people. That's what it means to change a nation. I'm not going to be out here doing what everybody else is doing, saying what everybody else is saying, because I know at the end of the day, there is a root in all of us that is the reason for every bit of our anger, every bit of our choices, and every bit of our words. And the only way that we can shift it for the better is to get with God, not with another human being, not even with me. Go to God, ask Him to help you to forgive, which is a daily battle. And then you look at yourself and say, what is it that I've been doing to cause myself to get in this position? And Lord, help me to stop so I can do better. So that is the conversation that I had with young people this weekend. And it was a hard conversation to have. A lot of people think that me being honest and transparent comes so easy. It's not, because my greatest concern is always that somebody's going to hear it and they're going to interpret it in a way that it was never meant. But I also know that the way a person hears your words is a reflection of their heart. Because you can go out here and say the sweetest thing to somebody, and somebody could take it as an attack. There's a quote that says, truth sounds like an attack when you're not healed. So, my transparency, my authenticity has always been, I want young people to know that they are seen, to know that they are heard. And just like my deepest desire from this one individual, to know that they are accepted for who they are authentically, that they don't need to change at all for me to have their back and to love them. And if you meet any of my students, if you talk to any of my students, they will all tell you that these are not just words. I tell all of my students, you don't need to come in here acting like somebody else. Just be who you are. Even if you're angry and you had a bad morning, be that authentic person. But just know we're going to have a conversation and get to the root of it. So for me, it's all about exposing those roots, getting to those roots, and then healing it. Because once you understand that your pain isn't isolated pain and other people have gone through the same thing, you can learn from others on how to do better and get healed from it. So, anyways, like I said, I wanted to share that with you guys because I know, I don't know. I know that it's something that people get uncomfortable with, but I know that's how we really heal this nation. There's so much chaos going on right now, but the root of it is people's hurt feelings and egos because of what happened in their childhood. And if they simply talk about their childhood, they would begin to understand why what is happening now is not what they're angry at. They're angry at the fact that what is happening now is reminding them of something that happened in the past. So, anyways, I hope that all made sense. Again, this is the Voice in the Valley podcast with myself, Tara J, aka Dr. Armstead. I hope that you've enjoyed this little discussion. If you have, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the podcast so you get notifications of new episodes. Please share it with somebody if you feel like they would learn something or glean something from it as well. And also, shameless plug, have a backpack school supply drive going on. So if you would like to support that, please go check out my social media. I am Dr. Armstead on pretty much everything. As I always say, I love you guys. I am super, super appreciative of your support. I don't do a podcast or anything for money. I just want to get the truth out there in people's ears. Know that you are loved. Know that you are seen. And if no one else has said it, you are accepted. And your life, the things that you're enduring, is going to help heal somebody else one day. So I hope that you're having amazing morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are listening to this. I appreciate you. Again, I love you, and I will talk to you next time. What's up, you guys? Hopefully my laptop is not too loud. I'm gonna just check these comments real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, cool. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. I am going to end this right here. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm gonna take the audio and put this on Spotify ASAP. It is also going to be on my YouTube channel, which is TARAJ0214 on Yahoo. If you have any questions that, or not questions, any topics you want me to talk about in the future, just send me a DM or a message and all that good stuff. So I will see you guys later. All right. See you later, YouTube.